All right, so we start with the Ottoman Empire, and we've been talking about the religions and stuff like that, and you've taken the quizzes and all that. And if you haven't, we'll go do that today as well, if we have time. But the Ottoman Empire was a powerful empire in Southwest Asia, North Africa, that lasted around 5 centuries or 500 years. Capital city was Istanbul. That's what you're going to need to know on the test and the quiz or whatever. We'll have a test soon because we're a little bit behind, so I'm going to try to go through this rather quickly. Capital city is Istanbul, so it's going to say what was the capital of the Ottoman Empire, what city was the capital, it would be Istanbul. It becomes an important center of trade and wealth under Ottoman rule, and one reason is the location. It's located, if you'll see my cursor moving right here, it even says Constantinople and then in parentheses Istanbul. So the city was originally named Byzantium, and then after the Byzantines or the Romans, moved their empire and divided it, Constantinople, Byzantium was renamed Constantinople after Emperor Constantine, and it became a Eastern Orthodox Christian sort of place. But then the Ottoman Turks defeated what was left of the Byzantine Empire. They renamed the city Istanbul. You see it's located in this very, very important area where you have Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea trade. The Ottomans controlled all of this area around the Mediterranean, except for, Spain, what will become France, and the Holy Roman Empire here. So they did have a large amount of, power and influence in the Mediterranean. A module? Mm-mm. What will happen is I'll put this up on the module itself.
I was just wondering because I didn't see.
So the first module of the week will be put up after I get done with class.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason that is because the way that my notes are set up, I can't actually download the notes. I know that's weird. Can't download them, so I can't put them on the module. It's weird how they have them set up. So the Ottoman Empire grew wealthy by controlling trade around the Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea and by taxing people they conquered. Ottoman Empire and the Ottoman Turks were Muslims, and so they were like, okay, if you want to still be a Christian or a Jew in some cases, you could still do that, but you have to pay a tax. All right. And this was a way to convert people to Islam because there were a lot of people who were like, well, I think I will become a Muslim, Muslim, so that I don't have to pay the tax. Because when it comes to people money, they want to keep most of their money. But the Ottoman Empire did tax the people they conquered. And a lot of it had religious sort of connotations to it. Environmental features of Southwest Asia and North Africa or MENA. Delta regions, areas formed by the soil that is deposited at the mouth of a river, usually prone to flooding. Usually where the river empties out into these deltas, you will find the most, what you would consider fertile soil because of all the flooding and all the silt or alluvial soils that are left behind. This is the most, famous delta region. It is the Nile River Delta. If you'll notice that the Nile River flows south to north and empties into the Mediterranean. And this area, it looks like kind of like a fan, is very fertile soil in Egypt. And one of the reasons Egypt became, one of the earliest civilizations in the ancient breadbasket of the world. So the Nile River does empty out here into the Mediterranean. You have this Nile River Delta. Now, these are kind of like vocabulary words. You will have to know what they are. Alluvial soils are soil that is deposited by the flooding of the river. Now, these soils are usually very fertile. If you look at or you think about areas around here that have farmland, Callens, Pittsylvania County, areas like that, you really have to understand that those areas kind of dry. They use ponds to irrigate a lot of the fields and stuff like that. But, the soil, after you use the soil a couple of times, you deplete it of its nutrients. It's difficult to put the nutrients back into the soil. So they do slash and burn. Sometimes they burn crops, very rarely around here. Or, use manure and things like that to fertilize crops. But alluvial soils are very fertile. When the river floods, it produces this very fertile soil that, is used to grow a large amount of food, especially in the ancient river valley civilizations. Oasis. An oasis is a spot in the desert where fertile soil and water are found. Always makes me think about the band Oasis. Oasis, you all the time see in movies where these people come upon, they're out in the desert and they're starving and they're dehydrated and they're hallucinating, and they see one of these and they think, oh my God, I found water, and it's not real. We'll try to find a video of that too, but an oasis is a spot in the desert where fertile soil and water are found. That guy Jacob it's really funny because Jacob goes to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is primarily, or for the most part, it is, a lot of desert area. And every once in a while you do run into these oases. You have large amounts of land that are just nothing but sand, dry, and then in the middle of all that, you find one of these. So it's kind of wild. Wadis are valleys or ravines or channels that is dry except for in the rainy season. So if it is, the rainy or, sort of like the monsoon season over in India, you do find these wadis, a valley or ravine that has water. One thing that you do see a lot less of the oasis and the wadis due to the extreme conditions that we're all experiencing. So hazards, heat waves and droughts. You look up there at the top and that shows you really how hot some of the areas in the Middle East, especially in the Middle East and North Africa, can get. 111 degrees, 113 here, 90 here. That's not bad, right? 117 degrees. Now, you guys live here, right? So you know that it gets hot in the summertime, but it usually doesn't, go much over 100 degrees. I have to look up what the hottest temperature has ever been here, but it doesn't go to 117. I mean, good grief. Could you imagine 117 degrees outside? This does put a sort of a, it's dangerous. That sort of heat is dangerous. The heat causes dehydration, all sorts of things for the elderly or young. It's just not good. And then another thing you find is drought. I am going to show you that video of the drought. And it's crazy because India is a place that doesn't have a lot of water, but it also is unsanitary because people literally crap in the streets. Okay, they poop in the middle of the street. And they show a lot of that in the video. In fact, the woman who does the video is like, look at this. You can smell excrement everywhere. And the dude that was interviewed was like, they got toilets here, but they won't use them. It's just a different culture. And we'll look at that. The pictures really show you the clay, just the dry dirt here, lack of water, and the heat that causes someone to take a bath out here, a child. But you don't see that as often as you would think. I mean, just the extreme heat. Another thing that you'll find is dust storms. There's a great movie. I wouldn't say it's great, but there's a scene in Mission Impossible where a dust storm comes up. I can tell you from personal experience, I've been in the desert before. When I was in the Army, we go to this thing called NTC. It's the National Training Center. And that National Training Center is in the Mojave Desert. So when a dust storm comes up, it pretty much covers everything. We had a guy who was a sergeant, which is an E5, and he had a Stinger missile. Stinger missile is a missile you put on your shoulder and it locks into like back then, it was the Soviet era. So theoretically it could lock onto a MiG, a fast jet. And when you fired it, it had like heat seeking capabilities and would lock in on it and take that MiG out. It probably cost like anywhere from $820,000 to $1 million for that thing. So our sergeant, the guy that was the sergeant, he was in charge of it. He set it down and a dust storm came up and it covered it. You couldn't find it. And that's how bad it is. I mean, that's literally, it covers like so much stuff. It's so crazy. When you look at that picture, look at that dust storm. I mean, that looks crazy, right? Dirt, dust, it's really crazy. In that Mission Impossible, the dude's running from the dust storm trying to catch a guy. So it's really kind of cool looking. You do have blizzards in Afghanistan, Iran, in the mountain regions, stuff like that. Not as much in the other areas of the Middle East, though. You do have a lot of earthquakes. You have a lot of what we call tectonic sort of, plate shifting. And what this map tries to show you is sort of the belts and the things that, you have this plate, tectonic plates that shift and move and cause these crazy, deadly earthquakes. We'll try to look at one of them as well. One of the deadliest events in the last 20 years, earthquake that struck the city of Bam in Iran in 2003 and killed about 26,000 people. Try to look at, that sort of thing. All right, the Aswan High Dam was completed in Egypt. And you look right there and you talk about the Suez Canal and all this, but look at the large dam that they have built here. It is a source of hydroelectric power, provides about 15% of all of the electrical power in Egypt. So it does come with some controversy and, the positive effects, controlled flooding and hydroelectric power. But then the negative effects, it took people away from their homes. And it did mess with how the silt in that Nile Delta was displaced during seasonal flooding. No more silt means no more fertile soil for farmers. So the fact that it stopped that silt from moving and stopped the flooding was a bad thing. I know that's crazy, but as the Aswan High Dam does have negative effects. Ooh. Why is that video unavailable? All right. Wait a minute. All right, so that video is unavailable. Oh well. All right. Resources and economy. We're going to look at a few of the resources and the economy of Southwest Asia and North Africa. Here is a satellite image of the Nile River at night. what can we infer about settlement patterns? Well, you can tell that no one lives outside of this sort of, river area, right? The Nile River is an important place, and everyone, even in ancient times, moved around this Nile River delta. So most of the population you'll find along the Nile River, not over here in the deserts. And there's the Red Sea. You do see some activity there. All right, but that's a great satellite image that shows you most of the people live in the Nile Delta. Settlement patterns, lack of arable land has forced the majority of populations toward the Mediterranean coast and the major rivers. The Arabian Peninsula is nearly surrounded by water, but is mostly desert. This is a problem, and it's both a curse and a blessing at the same time. Whenever you think about Saudi Arabia, you know that they have a large petroleum, unrefined oil reserves that lie underneath the Arabian Peninsula. Petroleum can be refined into gasoline, diesel fuel, etc. Where do we get our oil? Where do we get our gas? We get it from Saudi Arabia. The United States gets the majority of its oil and gas from Saudi Arabia. Most of the world's known petroleum deposits are concentrated in Southwest Asia and North Africa. Much of the world, including the United States, depends on that region as an important energy source. And there you see, once again, satellite image that shows you, a lot of the area is desert. There's some mountains. And, Saudi Arabia, remember the city of Mecca is found in Saudi Arabia, touristy type place. But other than that, not a lot to really see there. Natural resources and economic characteristics. There's a heavy reliance in the region of primary economic activity, oil drilling, agriculture, pastoralism, water, and that's what I'm going to show you the video of in a little while, is the most precious resource. Many of the countries are either arid, landlocked, or both. There's a large gap in the standard of living. Most of these places you'll see mostly poor people. You're either really poor, you're really rich. There's not a real in between. The rich live lives of, greatness, and it just makes me think about my friend Henzo in Abu Dhabi. When he goes to Abu Dhabi, the sheik has, $12 million yacht. They sit on gold toilets and all that good stuff. And the poor people there don't even have a toilet. It's just it's like a whole different world. Economic characteristics. Countries in the Middle East usually have mixed economies with different levels of government control. Okay. Saudi Arabia and that they have a mixed economy. They do have more governmental control over it than, like, say, maybe even the United States. But one of the big things that you need to know about the Middle Eastern economic, guess what you would say, prosperity or lack thereof, is OPEC, Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. This is a cartel created to ensure the stabilization of oil markets. And it really is a way for many of the Middle Eastern countries to not undercut themselves. And what I mean by it, so let's say if there was no OPEC and the United States was like, look, Saudi Arabia, we want to buy oil from you, there would be competition. So they would look and go, okay, Saudi Arabia and Jordan. Jordan's willing to sell us their oil for, $10 a barrel. Saudi Arabia is going to sell it to us for $12 a barrel. Who you going to go to? You're going to go to Jordan. You're going to go to Iraq if it's cheaper than that. But with OPEC, they get together and they go, okay, you can only sell to the United States, and we're going to determine how much you can sell and what you're going to sell it for. So they control supply and demand. They can cut production, okay? And if there's an increase in demand, like in the summertime, the price is going to do what? What happens in the summer to gas? Gas goes up because people are doing what? They're going on vacation, they're traveling. You know demand's going to go up, so you know the price is going to go up. If they cut production, price will even go up more because they're limiting the amount of supply that you can get. So they, OPEC really controls supply and demand. They really control the price of oil and gas and things of that nature. Now, there's a big debate, can the president affect gas prices? Well, sure, speculative, because people start going, well, we got a president that invests in green energy, or let's say, you have a president that wants to, or Congress that wants to tax stuff like gasoline and things like that, the price is going to go up. Okay, so we do have some effect on that. The president or whoever does have some effect. But for the most part, OPEC determines our gas and how much it costs, how much we get and how much it costs. All right, and there you see some of the largest oil producers in the world. You look at Saudi Arabia has the big red dot, more than 5,000 barrels per day. Iran, 3,000 to 5,000 barrels per day. Iraq, 3,000 to 5,000. Yemen has about 3,000, 1,500 to 3,000. Oman has about the same. Libya. You see this right here, the United Arab Emirates, a small little country, but still produces about 3,000 barrels a day. A lot of money. Jordan doesn't really have that much, but Syria has a lot. Qatar, all these are rich countries except for Iran, because we made it so they're not rich. We basically put all these restrictions on them. Several countries have grown wealthy by extracting and exporting oil, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. This wealth has been used to build modern seaports, airports, highways, industrial plants. Jobs in oil-rich countries have attracted guest workers that fill jobs that tend to be low-paying and temporary. Oil wealth is not evenly distributed. The people live in remote villages, do not benefit from oil wealth, and the income gap is widening. So the poor people pretty much stay extremely poor, while a lot of the people who own, who are in government or own oil sort of stuff, they're the ones who are rich. If you look at the GDP per capita and you look at the wealth distribution, you can see that Saudi Arabia, most people there live probably not horrible. But in countries like Iran, there's a larger gap. Afghanistan, of course, Syria. Suez Canal is a sea level waterway in Egypt, connects the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. This canal is an important trade center, allowing Europe to have a shorter trade route to Asia.
The Suez Canal is one of man's most impressive inventions. The 193-kilometer canal runs through Egypt and has been pivotal in dramatically shortening the shipping route between Europe and Asia, because ships can travel through Africa instead of around it. In today's advanced world, it's almost hard to believe that humans completed the massive canal without modern technology. Construction of the Suez Canal began way back in 1859 and would take a whole 10 years to complete, eventually opening for international use in 1869. The original planning of the canal started in 1854. It began when the former French diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps negotiated a deal with the Egyptian viceroy Said Pasha to start the Suez Canal Company. Initially, the British Empire were against the canal's construction due to political tension with France, who were in favour of the project. However, Britain came on board when they, like France, realised the canal would majorly shorten shipping to their Asian colonies. Although the idea seemed simple enough, building the massive canal was a problematic experience. Initially, the workers used to build the canal were Egyptian peasants who were given no other choice but to work. They dug the canal slowly with picks and baskets. The extremely hot climate of Egypt made the work extremely tough, which only slowed the workers down even more. Fortunately, in 1863, forced labour was outlawed and Europeans with steam-powered shovels and dredgers had to be brought in to finish the mammoth task. They were not helped by an outbreak of cholera in 1865. When the canal finally opened in 1869, it was deemed property of Egypt and France, the two countries with majority shares in the Suez Canal Company. In 1875, though, Egypt sold its shares to the British, giving them ownership of the canal. Despite the British and French ownership, the canal was always supposed to serve any international vessel who wished to use it, whether it was during peace or wartime. This strict rule was laid out in the 1888 Constantinople Convention. The convention was not always followed though. For example, both Germany and Israel were unable to use the canal at points in the 1940s. Britain and France would continue to own the canal until 1956, when Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalised the canal in a show of Egyptian strength. Although it sparked a brief war between Egypt, Britain, France and Israel, the canal's ultimate control would remain with Egypt. Today, it is operated through the Suez Canal Authority and is open for use from all countries. Apart from a brief closure of the canal between 1967 and 1975, when sunken ships from the Six-Day War blocked the narrow entrance, the canal has always been readily available to shorten the trade route from Europe to Asia. In fact, shortening that very shipping route was the only reason the canal was conceptualised in the first place. Its very creation has helped link the markets of Europe and Asia closer than the humans of 1854 could have ever believed. And without the canal to revolutionise world shipping, the world that we know today would be hugely different. The Suez Canal is one of man's most impressive inventions. The 100
How are you? There we go. All right, we're going to stop there and I'll play a little video here. Hopefully get to that other one too.
Way we manage our water, in only 15 years, 40% of the world will not have adequate access to usable water. We sent Tanya Rashid to India to find out just how bad the problem is there.
This is the toilet. So basically someone cooks in here and then it goes straight outside. The poop flows in out of the toilets into these open gutters. So they're pouring water out from within the building and she literally scoops it out.
To deal with these gutters running through their streets, locals hire manual scavengers.
This is literally sitting contaminated water. I think I was reading it
Let me stop the video here.